What is going on, guys? My name is Sean Barnard, and welcome back to the Pick Swap Media YouTube channel. The NBA trade season is in full swing. We have seen the Kyrie Irving trade kick things off and make things heat up, and I'm here to get into it. Now that it is the demise of the Nets organization, the Big Three era is killed, the Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant era is killed. I'm here to talk about what a massive failure that was. Let's get into it.
Check it out.
Step back, James Harden, right on target. Bang, bang, George Niang to Paul Reed from Tyrese Maxey.
Joel
So before we fully dive into what exactly happened with this Nets team and why the collapse went down the way it did, we need to lay out how we got here. So let's flash back a little bit to this 2018-19 season before the Big Three era of the Nets. And at this point, the Nets coming out of the 2018-19 season, they went 42-40, finished sixth place in the East. Their leading scorer that year was D'Angelo Russell, who averaged 21.1 points, 7.0 assists, and 3.9 rebounds. Spencer Dinwiddie played a key role in that team, averaging 16.8 points, 4.6 assists, 2.4 rebounds. Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, that was essentially the core of that team, and they were ready to swing for the fence. The Nets organization has been a team ready to swing for the fence since they came to Brooklyn and since they kind of put themselves together in the post Deron Williams era and everything through that. And don't forget what led up to this point in the 3 years prior to that season was kind of the low point of the Nets franchise. In those 3 years before the 2018-19 season, the franchise won a combined 69 and 177. And that was following, of course, the trade for Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, that aging Celtics core that they tried to jumpstart the Nets franchise, put them into contention. And that full trade, of course, was Gerald Wallace, Chris Humphries, Keith Bogans, Chris Joseph, Marshawn Brooks, one pick swap, and 3 first-round picks. And for that, they brought back Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Jason Terry, and DJ White. It did not play out the way it was supposed to. The core was too far gone. They were too far aged in their process and well out of their prime to kind of bring success to the organization in the way that the Nets hoped and desired. And that really did put them in a bad place moving forward. So that's where we see them kind of flirt with that mediocrity and having trouble. And then they kind of reload and get ready for this big swing again. And that's what brought them to Kyrie and Kevin Durant. And that brings us to June 2019. There was kind of a lead up. There was no secret that there was kind of whispers of this happening. There was a clip of the All-Star game in the 2018-19 season where Kyrie and Katie are kind of talking on the side and talking about maybe potentially playing with each other. And then lo and behold, it happens. Kyrie kicks it off, signing a 4-year deal for $142 million. This is after he spent 2 seasons with the Celtics leading up to this. And Kyrie, he had his journey of wanting to get away from LeBron, to kind of get out from LeBron's shadow, be his own guy. And that's what led him to Boston and then led him to Brooklyn. And Kevin Durant, on the other hand, was coming off 3 seasons with the Golden State Warriors. This was the year prior to this is when he tore his Achilles. So he missed the entire 2019-20 season, which was his first season technically with the Brooklyn Nets. But before that, in that free agency, he signed a 4-year deal as well, worth $164 million. So it was Kyrie and Katie kind of choosing to team up. They also brought in DeAndre Jordan, which was made out to be a much bigger signing than it turned out to be. But he was obviously kind of friends with these guys, and that was looked at as a key part of the franchise. And with that year, without Kevin Durant, who once again was recovering from that Achilles injury that he sustained in the finals, Kyrie played just 20 games without Kevin Durant, where he averaged 27.4 points, 6.4 assists, and 5.2 rebounds. And that's been the theme with Kyrie. That is no secret. It's not the level of ability, but the availability that is always the issue. And that reared its face right away in Brooklyn. So ahead of the 2020-21 season, after a year where they got Kevin Durant back, they got Kyrie Irving, and it's time to kind of truly start competing. That's when they move on and give Steve Nash the keys as head coach. Nash, a bit of a surprise choice. He had no head coaching experience, a guy who had just recently retired from the NBA as a player, obviously one of the most respected players around the league, and he was kind of thrust in the fire to deal with kind of these egos. And right away, this is even further maximized because right away kicking off that season is when the James Harden meltdown in Houston starts to occur. So as that championship window with the Rockets fully closes, there's just James Harden is doing his thing, his high usage being the money man there, but just lacking any talent around him. It was very clear that the Rockets were no longer contenders. This is after Daryl Morey moved on. This is after the Russell Westbrook experiment failed, the Chris Paul experiment failed, and they just couldn't find a way to get them over the top. James Harden very publicly demanded his way out, and he went through the whole runner of putting on weight, of showing up lazy, doing his thing, and he still did play. He was never a guy that held out, but he made it very clear, both publicly to the media and just about every way possible, that he wanted his way out. So lo and behold, he found his way to Brooklyn with a trade, as the Nets traded Jaren Allen and Taurean Prince to the Cavs, traded Karis LeVert, 3 first-round picks, which were 2022, 24, and 26, and 4 pick swaps, which are 2021, 23, 25, and 27 to the Rockets. And we're going to circle back to that because that shapes their outlook right now a great bit. But they bring in James Harden, and I think it should be acknowledged. I think it gets lost in the shuffle of all this, how good James Harden was when he first got to Brooklyn. He was not washed James Harden by any means. The James Harden that first arrived in Brooklyn was every bit the MVP caliber of the one that left Houston. In his first season with the Nets, the 36 games that he played that season, he averaged 24.6 points, 10.9 assists, and 8.5 rebounds, a near triple-double in a way that contributed to winning, and found himself on the MVP ladder in deserving fashion. Then towards the end of the season, it was when the hamstring injuries start to pop up, and that was seen in those playoffs. He played right through them. The hamstring issues, of course, he missed some time when they first sustained. Started at the tail end of the regular season. He re-injured it in the playoffs, and you see him out there with zero burst whatsoever. And these hamstring issues were really a major reason for his decline, and something that was seen since he come through the Sixers as well. So that season, that one lone season when they have that true trio of Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, the Nets beat the Celtics 4-1 in the first round, move on to the Eastern semis, and that's when they lose to the Bucks 4-3. That's that fateful shot where Kevin Durant hits that fadeaway jumper where his toe is just on the line. If his massive feet were just a little bit smaller, and that's a three-pointer, that probably drastically alters the just trajectory of the Nets franchise. But lo and behold, it is a tie. They go to overtime, and the Bucks win the series in 7 games. And from there is when the vibes start to get a little bad. James Harden is a little bit sick of the Kyrie Irving experience. And then in September 2022, as we all saw, is when James Harden is traded to the Sixers. That's when we see the obviously Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, and Andre Drummond 2022 first-round pick, 2027 first-round pick for James Harden and Paul Millsap. And this is one of those situations where it kind of was rough on both teams. Neither one of them got ideally what they wanted or were in the perfect situation. James Harden wanted out of Brooklyn. Ben Simmons was obviously already holding out from the Sixers. So there's a little bit of damage goes on both parts. Now, looking at it now, it's pretty clear the Sixers have the better part of those damage goods, because the version of James Harden, while it's still not near what he was in Houston or near what he was when he first got to Brooklyn, is still a player that has helped unlock Joel Embiid, help the team contribute to winning. Whereas Ben Simmons is a guy who, it's tough to say, tough to put into words exactly what he is. Just a frustrating player, a max contract guy who's essentially a screen setter, and seems to be increasingly growing enemies within his own team. So he will be a storyline to watch. But to think back to that Nets core, they played just 16 games total combined, the trio of James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant. 16 games on the floor together, in which they went 13-3. Kyrie Irving himself played just 143 out of the 288 possible regular season games that he could have played in. Some of that was injury, some of that was vaccines, some of that was everything in between of his personal choices, off court, being suspended. You know the Kyrie Irving story, the ups and downs, everything that goes along with it, and the baggage that he kind of brings. And that wore tiresome, and that's why he is forcing his way to the Mavericks today. So now that kind of we see the trade for the Mavericks, obviously, blockbuster deal. He's going to join Luka. I will be dropping tomorrow a more clear, or actually I dropped yesterday, a more clear kind of my thoughts on that, what I do believe it works. But to talk about the Nets specifically in this one, the Nets are now in a difficult spot because they still have Kevin Durant, a guy who is still at this point in his career a top 5 talent across the entire NBA, but they now have a non-competitive roster behind them. I mean, think about going from a trio of KD, James Harden, and Kyrie to a trio of KD, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Ben Simmons. That's not something that's going to keep Kevin Durant happy. And there's also very clearly the Nets who have looked impressive for stretches of the season. That they've been moments where they look every bit the contender it was imagined, even with the Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Jacques Vaughn, I think, has done a terrific job stepping in as head coach this year. Their defense has been significantly better. Nick Claxton is a incredible player, a perfect addition, perfect complementary piece on what he does defensively, the way he can switch, the way he can impact the game. They have some players in place. Royce O'Neal is another guy who can contribute to winning. Seth Curry can get hot, but they're just now a notable notch below teams like the Boston Celtics, like the Milwaukee Bucks, like the Philadelphia 76ers, even the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think could give them some trouble, and you got to figure out what to do. They have these 3 first-round picks. It's still plan on them being active at the deadline. But Kevin Durant is already a guy who requested a trade this offseason and rescinded that, is playing through it. But they don't have a clear direction to go. The obvious answer in this situation is typically you trade the star, you sell the farm, and you rebuild. But the Nets really don't have the luxury of doing that because of the Rockets, or because of the draft picks that they traded to the Rockets already. Once again, the Rockets hold pick swaps in 2025 and 2027, as well as the Nets first round pick straight up in 2024 and 2026. KD is on the books until the 2025 and 2026 season. The Nets have 3 first round picks that they can trade. So there's got to be a win now effort again. But it hasn't been like a crazy active deadline in the way that most of the activity has been inside the Nets locker room and guys wanting put players out like that. Kyrie will likely age as the most significant piece moved. Spencer Dinwiddie, while he is a solid player, is not a guy that can get you over the edge or contribute to winning in that way. So how the Nets tread next and what the next moves are will say a lot about what the future of the franchise is, what direction they choose to go. When you have Kevin Durant, you pretty much owe it to him. You don't have much of a choice but to go out and try to win. But he's a guy that is not going to go about this silently. He's going to continue to get frustrated and has already voiced his frustration to them. So they're a team that has to get things done. They have to be active over these next couple days, and it will be to be determined what that happens. So they're a team for sure to watch until this Thursday deadline, and what their next moves say a lot about them. But this failed Big Three era of James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant will go down as one of the biggest failures in NBA history. This was a team that was crowned as the greatest Big Three ever assembled, the most talented roster ever constructed, and they just didn't deliver. And this is something that shouldn't be a surprise. Even from the second it was constructed, there was concern over the egos, over the mentalities not mixing, and all of that was put on display. So the Nets now got to figure it out. They don't have a lot to work with, and how things shake out from here will be very interesting. Thank you guys for watching. Appreciate you guys all for tuning in. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will talk with you next time.